Punk Revolution. Hey everybody, today we're going to be reviewing the Cardiac's legendary album, Sing to God. This has been an album that people have been asking me to review for a long time now, and I am more than happy to do so, because this album and this band, Cardiac's, are really freaking interesting, really freaking weird, and kind of punk too. Cardiac's, let me just tell you one thing real quick. Cardiac's, when they first got started as kind of figuring out the band back in the late 70s, they went by The Filth, and then they eventually switched their band name to Cardiac Arrest. And then they eventually settled on Cardiac's, which is, okay, that's fucking weird, because the frontman of Cardiac's, Tim Smith, a little over a decade ago, had a very serious heart attack, a life-altering, severe heart attack that he still is recovering from, still facing complications. Can you fucking believe this band was called Cardiac Arrest and then the dude had a fucking heart attack? That is so weird, and there are so many weird things about the band Cardiac's. It's insane. Let's get started. This album came out in 1996. Really crazy shit. More to come. Let's start by taking a look at the album cover. This album cover, honestly, is just so fucking atrocious. Like, I look at it and I really do not want to listen to this music. This album, in so many different ways, is just so challenging, hard to digest. Starting with the album cover, it's just like, what the fuck are these dudes looking at? And then you put the music on and then it's just like, what the fuck am I listening? It's just, there's so many layers of just challenging, strange, weird things to this album. This album actually got very poor reviews when it came out. Vox famously gave this album a 0 out of 10 when it came out. Really strange stuff. A little bit, rewind. So, like I said, this album came out in 1996, June of 1996, a little bit, only about a month after my birthday. So, you know, it was kind of an epic month for music history. Anyways, so Cardiac's actually already released a number of really pretty darn interesting and cool albums, establishing themselves as a really interesting, crazy, weird, artsy-fartsy, British art punk band. And you know what? They had some pretty killer albums, went on hiatus, came back, 1996, with this album, which I believe is their masterpiece. Fucking crazy. Vox gave it a 0 out of 10, but you fast forward 20, 30 years from now and ask any music critic, they'll tell you this album kind of kicks ass. That is how you know this band, way ahead of everyone else, putting this ugly-ass album cover in your face. But you know what? The music is so fucking good that even if you think it's atrocious at first, you listen and you realize it's kind of brilliant. Now, what is the fucking music after all? Well, it's kind of hard to categorize. I personally, if I had to put this into one genre, I would put it under progressive rock. I'd say I definitely hear a lot of influence from like the weird, crazy, psychedelic progressive bands of the late 60s and 70s, like Gong and, you know, the krautrock like Faust and Noi bands, and probably also, you know, like freaking Gentle Giant, like all the progressive bands. But it's crazy because you got this kind of punk edge to it. Like, clearly these guys, like, I mean, obviously if you listen throughout their discography, you'll definitely hear post-punk and art punk elements in it. But just, like, it's crazy that they're working within these, like, grand progressive rock songs. These guitars that are just so, have a nice bite to it, like, it's just so full of energy, so crazy, so wild. These songs are fucking manic, full of energy, nonstop. This album is so freaking excessive. It's a double album. They just have so many instruments here. They got guitars, got saxophone, got all sorts of synths, got organs, got freaking a string section. They got trumpets. They got freaking everything. And it's just like, they're not just kind of like putting a little here and there. They're giving you all of it to you at once. It's a freaking wall of sound of punk, weird quirkiness that comes together like a theatrical production. This album sounds like an opera or like a theater where it's just like people run on stage and then there's some bells like and then they run off and then it's insanity. It's literally insanity. It's one of the craziest albums I have ever heard in my life, and it's kind of just crazy almost nonstop. There are some pretty like, you know, short, chill tracks here where it's like just kind of weird noises that are more on the gentle side. But then there are freaking tracks where it's literally like, just as much as I possibly can in your fucking face, giving you the epic, progressive, psychedelic punk craziness, okay? And that, my friends, makes a challenging album. If you can get past the strange album cover, and then you get past the weird British theater, quirky prog cheesiness that's kind of noisy and punky and just dense and a long album, it's a double album, you can get past all that, you will realize these songs are brilliantly composed. It just seems like this album came from like another universe, because every single one of these songs is just packed with so much attention to detail, really well thought out compositions. These aren't just kind of just, let's just give it all for, we're just not going to think about it, we're just going to play our instruments loud. No, there's tons of thought that goes into these compositions, and they come together in something that's just like never been really done before or ever heard before, okay? When I hear progressive punk, I don't know, I just something spit out of my mouth. If I hear progressive punk, I think Cardiacs, because they're the quintessential progressive punk band. And they're not just progressive punk, and even though this is noisy and crazy and jazzy and weird and avant-garde progressive blah 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 blah, it's really, really poppy and catchy. It's the good stuff of pop. It's the psychedelic catchy pop that's just like everyone wants to sing along to this, and you just have to because it's like a freaking theatrical production where everyone's singing along. Pretty darn amazing. And in the midst of this, they just do all sorts of cool stuff. There's one moment in the middle of the album, right before the second disc of the album, where there's just like this string section that's just playing this really beautiful arrangement. Lots of crazy cool stuff going on. Wow. What the hell is up with this freaking album? Pretty darn, I mean, it's a classic, folks. I would say this is probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, progressive rock album in the past 30 years. Really strange stuff, really cool, really interesting, really weird. 1996, good year for music, especially in between May and June, because two epic things were born, me and this album. Yeah, I already made that joke. Anyways, let's talk about how I'm gonna rate this. I'm gonna give this a 9.5 out of 10. I think it's a freaking classic. I love it so freaking much, but I don't really want to give it a 10 just because I don't know. It's just like not an album I necessarily find myself like going to very often. It kind of takes a lot out of me to listen to, but every time I do, I love it. But I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna put that down and not listen to it for a while because that was fucking a lot. And yeah, that's kind of why it took me so long to finally review it, even though everyone was asking me to. It's like, you guys are really gonna make me review this fucking challenging, insane album? Okay, there you go, 9.5. It's a classic. I love it. If you give it a 10, that's fantastic. It probably deserves that too, anyways. But thank you for watching, folks. Cardiac arrest. Oh my god, heart attack. What the hell? So trippy. What the hell? Anyways, thank you for watching Punk Revolution.